Welcome back to The Explainer. So, today we're tackling what is honestly one of the most frustrating paradoxes in modern management. It's the mysterious, almost magical disappearance of employee motivation. Just picture this, right? A company realizes morale is tanking, so they roll out this massive, super energized one-week motivation program. You know the drill. Maybe it's a shiny new initiative, a team-building retreat, or, I don't know, quality week. Everyone gets totally hyped up, the energy is electric, and leadership is literally patting themselves on the back. But then, well, a week goes by, maybe two, and suddenly, boom, that intense motivation vanishes into thin air. We are right back to square one with the exact same sluggish, disengaged workforce as before. So why does this happen? To figure this out, we're diving into the brilliant insights of legendary management thinker W. Edwards Deming. He completely shattered how we look at pride in the workplace.
To really wrap our heads around this, we've got to look at Deming's own slightly humorous but painfully accurate metaphor. He actually compared these short-lived motivation programs to instant pudding. I mean, think about it. You mix up instant pudding, and in that first moment, it's warm, it's sweet, it feels like a great comforting treat. It gives you this quick rush. But what happens when that pudding just sits around and cools down? It gets cold, it congeals, and all of that initial appeal completely disappears. It gets gross, honestly. And that is exactly what happens with external motivation drives. They provide this short burst of warmth and euphoria for the team, but because there's absolutely no real substance keeping it warm, it goes cold almost instantly. The energy just dissipates, leaving behind the exact same underlying problems that existed before the program even started.
And, this leads us right into a massive misconception that so many leaders hold. There's this pervasive myth floating around that some people are just inherently lazy, or they just don't care. But Deming makes a really profound point here. Unmotivated employees aren't genetically demotivated. Literally, no one is born hardwired to do a bad job. In fact, if you look at almost any employee's first day on the job, they start out with a tremendous amount of internal motivation. They want to do well, they really want to contribute. The motives, the desire to be proud of their work, it was originally all there. But over time, those motives are systematically killed off by past management practices. So if an employee is sitting at their desk today totally checked out, well, it's because their environment and their leadership have, over time, essentially taught them that caring about their work simply isn't worth the emotional investment.
Section 1. The Anatomy of Losing Pride.
Let's walk through a highly relatable scenario. An agonizing journey that honestly happens in offices everywhere, every single day. Picture a super enthusiastic new employee. Maybe it's a young programmer who just wrote an incredibly elegant piece of code, or a sales rep who just closed a remarkably tough deal. On day one, they are absolutely bursting with pride. They present their work to their boss, practically glowing. But what happens? Month one rolls around. The boss is busy, distracted, and completely ignores the good work. No acknowledgement whatsoever. Fast forward to month 6. The employee tries again, maybe suggesting a new improvement. This time, the boss finally speaks up, but only to critique a minor flaw, offering absolutely zero praise for the initiative. By year 2, a profound psychological shift has occurred. After having their ideas ignored, or worse, having their credit stolen by a manager trying to cover their own mistakes, the employee becomes defensive. They stop bringing new ideas. They stop trying to excel. They just do the bare minimum to survive without getting yelled at. Their pride has literally been suffocated.
And, sometimes the damage isn't even done by total silence, but by 3 little words. It's okay, but. Man, this is one of the most toxic management habits in existence. An employee brings you a project they poured their heart into. You look at it and say, it's okay, but you really should have done this one part differently. The moment, the exact second, you throw a but into your feedback, you completely negate any trace of praise that came before it. The employee doesn't hear it's okay. They only hear the but. They hear that they aren't quite good enough. And when this happens repeatedly, they are forced into a very cautious, self-protective mindset. They stop taking risks. They stop aiming for excellence. Because really, why bother if the only guaranteed outcome is a critique of what they missed?
Which brings us back around to the formal definition of Deming's instant pudding syndrome. This perfectly illustrates why a manager's typical quick fixes completely fail. See, when managers realize their team is in that defensive, self-protective slump we just talked about, they panic. They reach for the instant pudding. They declare it's Quality Week or Energy Month. They hand out branded mugs. They put up motivational posters. But Deming argues that relying on these short-term, external motivation programs is actually a fundamental failure of management. It creates a brief, artificial euphoria. Sure, people might smile for a few days, but the system hasn't changed. The moment those posters come down, the pudding goes cold. And the very real, very systemic problems that crushed their pride in the first place, they are still sitting right there at their desks. We really need to contrast these two fundamentally different approaches to leadership. On one side, you have external motivation. This is the totally flawed idea that motivation is something you have to constantly physically inject into people from the outside. It's temporary, it's euphoric, and most dangerously, when it inevitably fails, it blames the employee. The manager thinks, well, I threw them a pizza party and they're still lazy. No way. On the flip side, we have Deming's truth, systemic management. This approach recognizes that true motivation comes from internal pride, and that internal pride must be fostered and protected by the system itself. It is a long-term strategy of building an environment where people are naturally allowed to feel good about the work they do, rather than constantly trying to bribe them into caring.
Section 2. Recognition without the word but.
Okay, so the absolutely crucial point here is this. True pride doesn't come from a pizza party or a motivational poster. Pride manifests only when an employee is allowed to clearly see how their specific daily work contributes to a larger, important objective. People want to know that their time matters, you know? They want to know that they are a crucial piece of a giant puzzle. If a manager can connect an employee's micro tasks to the company's macro goals, they unlock an intrinsic, systemic motivation that doesn't just fade away after a week. It becomes a lasting, permanent part of how that employee views their professional worth.
So to properly recognize an employee's contribution, instead of just relying on empty praise, there is a simple, empowering formula. Step 1. Acknowledge the work publicly. Let the whole team know that this person's contribution matters. Step 2. Be highly specific. Don't just say, good job. Say, the way you structured the data in this report literally saved us 3 hours of processing time. And step 3, the absolute most important rule of all, remove the word but. Just say, this is exactly right, and here is how it contributed to our goal. Let the praise stand entirely on its own. Save the constructive critiques for a totally separate, dedicated coaching session. Trust me, it makes a world of difference.
I actually want to challenge everyone watching this explainer right now, especially if you lead a team, to use this specific mental checklist today. Grab a notebook. For every single member of your team, write down exactly what they should be proud of right now. Then, ask yourself honestly, have I recognized this clearly? Have I recognized it specifically? And did I manage to say it without immediately following it up with a but? If the answer to any of those is no, well, then you have an immediate action item for today. You don't need a massive corporate initiative. You just need to systematically restore the pride that your environment might have inadvertently taken away.
I want to leave you with this lingering thought. Look at the people who work for you or with you. They showed up on day one wanting to do something they could be proud of. If their pride isn't being recognized by you today, in a clear, specific, uncompromised way, what are you going to do about it? Remember, the motivation isn't lost. It's just waiting for the right system to let it out. Don't serve them instant pudding. Give them the recognition they actually deserve. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.